Hello and welcome to the Samplecast episode 12. In this show we've got a special extended podcast. On there you'll be able to hear from one of your fellow composers. He's actually put a track together and walked through how he's arranged the track and what instruments he's used as well. So head over to all the usual podcasting platforms where you can hear that. I want to say thank you so much to all the other composers who contacted me this week as well, in a shout out that I put out on Facebook for tracks to feature in the show. I've got a long list now, so there'll be plenty of those coming up in this series. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. First up in this week's roundup, it's Spitfire steel drums. These run in the full version of Contact. It's a 14GB library, so pretty big for a steel pan library. And within this library you've got two pans which have different beaters. There's mixable microphone positions, multiple dynamics, the ostinatum engine, which is something that you'll find in a lot of Spitfire products. And they've recorded their real rolls and single hits, and the dynamics can be controlled with the mod wheel. There's lots of information about this online. You can check out the Spitfire website. One thing I was really interested in were the patches that use the Spitfire eDNA morphing engine. So this takes the original samples and manipulates the steel pan hits into larger hits and smashes, atmospheres and twisted variations on the original samples. Definitely something that's worth having a look at if you're into sound design, underscoring, that sort of thing. Check it out at the Spitfire website. There's a new preset patch from the Unfinished. This is for Omnisphere 2 and it's called Omnisphere Ferox. You've got 300 patches here and they've been inspired by various soundtracks, including The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and the dark sounds of composers Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Here you've got pulsars, drones, soundscapes, kind of retro analog samples, old kind of 8-bit kind of inspired things. There's textured acoustic tones as well, and there's also plenty of lo-fi rhythms and gritty basses in there. These will be suitable for modern TV scoring, horror and thriller soundtracks, and Matt Bowdler has done an extensive walkthrough of most of the patches online on the Unfinished website, so have a look at that. There's definitely a couple of sample library producers who have capitalised on the upcoming Brazil Rio 2016 Olympics, and one of those is Cinesamples. They're presenting Rio Grooves. Now this is a whole bunch of Brazilian percussion loops, runs in the Contact player, and it's actually been recorded in Rio with Brazilian musicians. So here you've got 17 different percussion instruments which are spread across the various patches. They're not playable as individual instruments, but they are as pre-recorded loops, and there's loads and loads of different loops in there. You've got 3 different mic positions, and there's inbuilt grooves which actually sync to your host DAW tempo. You can also export the MIDI of the percussion patterns to your DAW by just simply dragging it in. It looks like quite a flexible library, and if you're in a hurry to create those kind of Latin Rio 2016 grooves, then this is probably something you should look at. I want to give a shout out to a developer called Sample Science. They're not a company that we've featured before on the show, but they have a very interesting plugin. It's called Nostromos. It's basically cinematic sounds, but instead of running in the Contact engine, the player or the full version, which most of the instruments, to be honest, that I feature in the show do, it's actually a separate plugin, which makes quite a nice change. It runs in Windows and Mac and in VST and AU formats. It's $30, but they're so confident about the results you're going to get with Nostromos that it comes with a 1-month refund, absolutely no questions asked. So within that plugin you've got 80 cinematic instruments with controls for dust, noise, room reverb and saturation as well. As I say, there's that money back guarantee. You might as well have a look at it, see if you like it, and if not, always return it. Particular Sound have a follow-up to their Rise Up collection. This is Rise Up Volume 2, and it's over a gig of hard-hitting cinematic sounds, including whooshes, transitions and impacts. So you've got 256 files in total, and they're all one-shots in the WAV format. No special processing, no Contact player, just drag and drop into your DAW. They're definitely worth having a look at because the first pack was quite impressive. The last thing I want to talk about on the roundup is a new section of the Function Loops website. Function Loops produce some interesting packs in a lot of different genres. They're very up to date usually, and there's a lot of kind of cutting edge sounds in there, but they've developed a new section of their website called Function Loops Academy. So here you can find tips and tricks on music production, and it's nice because they don't just use the function loop samples themselves, but they have lots of techniques there that are translatable into your own samples that you use yourself. The first video is about how to create the perfect kick drum, a nice snappy punchy professional sound, and there's already a second video uploaded which is all about chord creation. They're quite extensive, these videos, and more will be coming soon. I believe the first set of videos is actually a collection of 10. So see the Function Loops website for that. It's www.functionloops.com/academy, and certainly I learned something, and you probably can too. I want to thank my friend Florian for providing this week's composer demo. It's a piece called Petite Promenade, and you can find it on the podcast. Just head to your podcast provider, and you'll be able to hear how he puts that small chamber piece together using strings and flute. It's a really interesting listen. Every now and again I like to highlight a library which I personally have used for a number of years. Nothing too fancy, and I call it a little wonder. In this case it's Cinesamples, Snaps and Claps. Runs in the full version of Contact, and it's actually totally free from the Cinesamples site. I'll put the address down in the subscription and below. And it's a really simple library. It's just got finger snaps and hand claps mapped across the keyboard in two different groups. And I tend to use the samples for hip hop and R&B tracks that I'm producing for US TV shows, and I've used the claps for all sorts of things, to be honest, from TV advertising to kind of gypsy style scores. So let's have a little listen to how they sound. On the podcast I'm going to put one of my own tracks called Gypsy Dance, King of the Fairies. It's based on an old Irish folk song called King of the Fairies, and the track is actually 5 years old. I wrote it quite a long time ago. The production I don't think is amazing on it, but it still holds up and is actually a really good demonstration of the claps and snaps pack, because I've used that throughout the song, and also kind of really intensely towards the end of the piece. So go to your podcast provider, have a look for the Samplecast podcast, and you'll be able to hear my track Gypsy Dance. There's just one main deal that I want to talk about on Bargain VST this week. It's not going to apply to everyone, but for anyone that uses Ableton as their main DAW, or perhaps has a little bit of knowledge of that particular product, then this is going to be useful to you. It runs in Max for Live, which is the Ableton Live extension, and it's available from VST Buzz. It's called Streakulator by Audio Modern and Strange Lines. It's normally €39, but at the moment it's on sale for $11.99, which is I think about 70% off, something like that. And basically what it does is it adds rhythm and drive and interesting patterns, filters, side chaining. A little bit difficult to explain. I don't want to talk about it too much in the show because it won't apply to everyone, but for anyone that uses Ableton on and off like myself, it could be an interesting plugin to look at. Check it out at the VST Buzz website. This week I've got a really useful tip for you, and it's mostly relevant for people that are using quite widely panned sounds. So for example, if you've got a double track vocal with one vocal on the left and one vocal on the right, or perhaps double track guitars, something like that. Let's have a listen to this particular example. We've got a left and a right guitar, two different loops. That's the right channel. And that's the left channel. Both together. So if you were to add a very simple delay onto that, we'll just use the echo delay in Logic, and we're going to run those two guitar left and right channels into a bus. That's already been done here, and the echo is going to be 100% wet. So that's just echoing the left channel on the left channel and the right channel on the right channel. But you can get a much more interesting effect and sometimes increase the width by swapping over those channels. So the raw signals of left and right are the same, but the echo or the reverb, depending on what you want, is swapped over. The left becomes the right and the right becomes the left. It's a really simple technique. We can achieve that with the gain plugin in Logic, but your DAW will have its own variation. And we just click swap left and right. The gain plugin is placed before the echo, and this is the effect. This is what we had before. And there's the effect. And this works just as well on vocals or anything, as I say, that's panned hard left and right. Let's hear the unswapped channels first.
Right now, not then, I can still remember when.
And now swapped over.
Right now, not then, I can still remember when.
Much more subtle with the vocals, but you get the idea. Thank you so much for watching this week's Samplecast. I have started to fillet the shows from the last series, so you'll be able to find some of the individual sections of the show on YouTube now. I've started with the big reviews. There's a playlist that you should be able to find just there, if I'm pointing in the right direction. And you'll be able to go through those and listen quickly to all of my thoughts about the various products in the last series of the Samplecast. I'm not going to talk about the podcast again, I've mentioned it enough in this show, but it is there. You can check out the Samplecast website as well at thesamplecast.com. You can tweet me at thesamplecast. You can get hold of me on Facebook either by looking me up, it's Ruben Cornell, or there's a Facebook page called The Samplecast. It's pretty easy to communicate what you want in the show, so please do so. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next week.